Just shake it off, it'll pass. And I believed them because I wanted it to pass. But the thing is, it didn't. The sadness I felt didn't come and go. It stayed. It sat on my chest like a heavy weight I couldn't push off, even when nothing was technically wrong. Even when I smiled and laughed at work, I'd go home and feel like I was disappearing inside my own body. When I tried to talk about it, people would say, I get sad too. And I'd nod, trying to convince myself they understood. But deep down, I knew what I was feeling wasn't just sadness. I just didn't have the words for it yet. Until one day, someone told me, sadness is an emotion, depression is an illness. And that single sentence cracked something open in me. It made me realize I wasn't broken. I was battling something deeper, and I finally had a name for it. After that conversation, the one where someone told me that sadness is an emotion and depression is an illness, I couldn't stop thinking about it. For years, I had been treating what I felt as if it was something temporary. Like a bad mood I could shake off. Like maybe if I just got more sleep, or pushed myself harder, or distracted myself long enough, it would eventually disappear. But it didn't. And that made me start asking questions I had avoided for a long time. What exactly was I feeling? Why did I feel so heavy all the time, even when life on the outside looked fine? Why did I keep withdrawing from people I loved? Why did I keep saying I was just tired when the truth was I didn't even know how to feel connected anymore? At first, I thought I was just being dramatic. I told myself, everyone gets sad. Don't overthink it. You're just too sensitive. But then I realized something important. When I used to feel sad, it came after something, a loss, a disappointment, a fight. There was always a cause, a trigger, and eventually it faded. Maybe I cried. Maybe I journaled, maybe I talked to a friend, but the sadness would lift like clouds clearing after a storm. This didn't lift. It wasn't loud like crying. It was quiet, like emptiness, like being emotionally flatlined. Some days I would look in the mirror and not even recognize myself. Other days I would stare at the ceiling for hours, unable to move, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't feel anything at all. That's when I started to understand the real difference. Sadness responds to life. Depression rewrites it. Sadness is like a wave. It comes, it crashes, and then it recedes. But depression, it's like being underwater all the time. You forget what dry land feels like. You forget what it's like to breathe without effort. And the scariest part, people couldn't tell. I was still working, still showing up, still smiling in photos, but inside I felt like a shell. Functioning just enough to not alarm anyone. I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't have bruises to show, no obvious reason to point to. So when people asked if I was okay, I'd just say I'm tired. Because it was easier than saying, I don't remember what joy feels like. That's when it hit me. Most people, including myself, don't really know how to tell the difference between feeling sad and being depressed. And because of that, so many of us suffer in silence, not because we're not feeling anything, but because we've never been taught how to name what we feel. The turning point for me wasn't just realizing I was struggling, it was understanding how I was struggling. What I had been calling sadness for years wasn't just sadness, it had crossed into something deeper, something more serious. There were 6 clear differences that helped me see it for what it truly was. 1. Sadness is a reaction. Depression is a condition. When I used to feel sad, it was usually tied to something, a breakup, a failure, a bad day. There was always a reason, but with depression, it didn't need a reason. I could have a good day on paper, eat well, get praise at work, hang out with friends, and still feel like I was unraveling inside. Sadness reacted to life. Depression just was. It lived in me without asking for permission. 2. Sadness fades. Depression lingers. I remember crying after losing a loved one. I was heartbroken, but weeks later, laughter found its way back to me. That's how sadness worked. It left when I was ready. But depression didn't wait for an invitation and didn't care when it outstayed its welcome. It was like living under a constant fog. Even when I smiled, it didn't lift. Even when I rested, I still woke up tired. It made time feel endless and stuck all at once. 3. Sadness is specific. Depression feels confusing. Sadness made sense. I'm sad because I failed that test. I'm sad because I miss someone. But depression, it made everything feel meaningless, and I didn't even know why. I couldn't point to a single thing and say, that's what's hurting me. I just knew something was wrong. And the worst part was when I couldn't explain it, people assumed it wasn't real. But it was very real, just invisible. 4. Sadness is personal. Depression is clinical. I used to tell myself, I just feel off today. But those off days kept piling up. Soon, it wasn't just about feelings, it was about functioning. I couldn't sleep, or I slept too much. I lost my appetite, or I ate just to feel something. Everything felt exhausting. A therapist once told me that depression is diagnosed when these patterns last for weeks, and mine had lasted for months. I wasn't just sad, I was unwell, and I needed help. 5. Sadness disrupts moments. Depression disrupts life. When I was sad, I could still go to work, still hang out with friends, still enjoy small things. But with depression, everything started slipping away. My motivation, my focus, my self-worth. I stopped returning messages. Stopped caring how I looked. Even brushing my teeth felt like a chore. It was like my life was happening without me, and I couldn't find the energy to rejoin it. 6. Sadness allows joy. Depression steals it. There were times I was sad, but a good movie or a hug could lift me. Even in tears, I could laugh. But with depression, it was like the joy switch had been turned off. Music didn't move me. Sunlight didn't warm me. Even the people I loved felt distant, like I was watching them through glass. And the things I used to care about, they felt hollow, like memories from someone else's life. Learning these differences didn't magically fix everything. But it gave me language, it gave me understanding, and most of all, it gave me permission. Permission to stop pretending, permission to ask for help, and permission to stop blaming myself for something I never chose in the first place. When I finally admitted to myself that I was dealing with depression, I thought the next step had to be something big, like going on a retreat, starting medication, changing my life. But what I learned was that healing didn't come from grand gestures. It came from the smallest acts of care, tiny choices I made each day to keep going when part of me wanted to give up. The first thing I did was check in with myself every morning. I stopped asking, "Am I okay?" because the answer was always complicated. Instead, I asked, "Where am I today on a scale of 1 to 10?" There was no right or wrong answer. Just honesty. That question helped me track my patterns. It helped me notice when I was slipping before I crashed completely. The second thing I changed was my definition of rest. I used to feel guilty for lying in bed. Guilty for taking naps, like I was wasting time. But depression taught me that rest wasn't laziness. It was necessary. So I gave myself permission to rest without needing to justify it. Sometimes doing nothing was the bravest thing I could do. Then I started lowering the bar for daily tasks. I used to write long to-do lists that only made me feel like a failure. Now, I celebrated brushing my teeth, getting dressed. Washing one plate, I broke things down into the smallest steps, and every time I completed one, I reminded myself, this counts. Another habit that helped was reaching out just a little. I didn't need deep conversations. Sometimes I just sent a heart emoji to a friend or replied to someone's story with a smile. It wasn't about being social. It was about reminding myself that connection still existed. Even if I didn't have the energy to fully show up, I could still say, "I'm here." And finally, I paid attention to sensory moments. Warm water on my skin, the smell of fresh coffee, the softness of clean sheets. I didn't need these things to fix me. I just needed them to remind me I still had a body, and that body deserved comfort, even when my mind was tired of fighting. These habits didn't cure my depression, but they gave me structure, they gave me rhythm, they reminded me that healing isn't loud or dramatic, it's quiet, it's repetitive, and it's built one gentle moment at a time. I used to think that if I was strong enough, I wouldn't feel like this, that if I just pushed harder, stayed busy, smiled more, the darkness would go away. But the truth is, strength doesn't always look like smiling through the pain. Sometimes it looks like whispering, "I'm not okay," and letting that be enough for today. Looking back, I realize now how many people misunderstood me, and how often I misunderstood myself. I confused sadness with depression. I told myself to snap out of it. I blamed myself for not bouncing back faster. But depression isn't something you snap out of. It's not a lack of gratitude. It's not a weakness of character. It's a mental illness. And the more we confuse it with sadness, the more we leave people, like I once was, feeling ashamed, alone, and invisible. If you see yourself in anything I've shared, I want you to know this. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not too much. You're someone who's hurting and still trying. And that effort matters, even when no one sees it. You deserve help. You deserve support. You deserve to rest. And you're not weak for needing any of that. In fact, it takes a lot of strength to survive what others can't even see. So if you've made it this far in the video, thank you for listening, for showing up, for being here. And if someone in your life ever opens up about what they're going through, pause before you say, "I feel sad too." Instead, say, "I'm here, I believe you." Because sometimes that's all someone needs to hear. Let's talk below. Have you ever confused sadness with something deeper? Leave a comment and let's make this space one where people feel seen. And if this video resonated with you, subscribe for more stories and tools for healing, one gentle day at a time.